As we come back to you here on this Monday edition. Sorry, I was not couldn't make it there on Saturday. This past Saturday, of course, we have a show here on Mondays and Saturdays. And thanks to Sean for being able to fill in for that day. But because we missed a day, we have a packed show for you as much as we can get in for an hour. And usually, when I have when we just have an hour with you guys, we have time for almost just about two stories. That's about it. If I can try to fit a third one in, I can. But the two main ones that I want to talk about today is the election that's going on in LA and a lot of the things that are going on around that election, a lot of the craziness that's going around it. And essentially, now that we've had several Republicans vote against the SAVE Act, what it could mean for the country if the Democrats, their type of election that they want. So there's been a lot of claims about Donald Trump making unsubstantiated claims. You heard it right there in the news brief before the show. So we're going to look at is there any substantiated claims of voter fraud, or what exactly is going on? Where are people coming from when they talk about voter fraud? But more importantly, that to me is the minor issue of how they run the elections, which is how Democrats want to run elections, which I think is the more important way to talk about. So you can see their vision for the United States as far as how we should run ours. Like you said, especially since the SAVE Act looks like it's not going to be passed, which is just very, very which just completely, it just blows my mind. Again, just another example. It's been a common theme here on the show of how Republicans have failed in Congress time and time again. And this is just yet another one. So I think it's important to talk about how elections could be run if Democrats get their way. And if they could pass a law like an anti-Save America Act, just something that's exactly opposite of that, which could bar states from forcing IDs, because theoretically they could do that. So we'll talk about that. The other issue I want to talk about is now the second thing I want to talk about today is the extreme ramp up in Iran that's happened this past weekend, especially again as more Republicans are defecting from Trump in that conflict, and which has seemed to fuel the fire for Iran, giving them the ability to now attack, giving them the gall now to attack straight Israel. I think we could all say that the ceasefire is over. I don't know if they've officially said it, but Iran is attacking Israel directly. I think that's a pretty good indication that it's no longer going on. So we're going to talk about that as well. But let's get into our first story with the election in LA. So this is the LA mayoral race. It's gotten a lot of coverage for a multitude of different reasons. Obviously, LA being a very big city, LA being in a heavily blue state. It's a heavily blue area and a heavily blue state. So it attracted a lot of attraction because Karen Bass, the current mayor there, has just been a pretty horrible mayor, to say the least. I mean, literally, when her city was burning, she refused to come back. She was in a trip in Europe, and she just decided not to come back and just let the city burn. And I'll never forget her interview coming back, and this reporter's trying to talk to her, and she's like, "Where have you been?" And she just walks off, doesn't even say anything. While she was literally, like I said, it's like while Rome burned, the emperor, it's like just trying to play a fiddle. That's exactly what she was doing. It's just crazy just how horrible of a mayor she is. So because of that, it's been a heated primary between three people. So it's been Spencer Pratt, who is like a TV star, Karen Bass, and Nitya Raman. Nitya Raman is a council member and also a progressive. So the interesting thing is that Spencer Pratt has been getting, he's not a Republican. I think he's been running as an independent. He's been getting a lot of support from Donald Trump's talked about him. A lot of other conservatives have talked about him. Like everybody's like, look, this is an example. He was running very well So right now, you have three candidates. The top two go to a runoff, so you have to be in the top two. And everybody thought that this guy is showing is indicative of people tired of liberal leadership in a liberal city. So when he was rising in the polls, everybody was trying to say that's an indication of that fact. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of people, including Donald Trump, have got behind it. But now, Nitya Raman, like I said, the council member who is also running, has now surged past Spencer Pratt in the primary election as of yesterday, which includes a 5-day turnaround after she fell behind Pratt on election night. And that may be raising a little like, what? What do you mean she's 5 days? I thought elections happen in a day. You find out the results the day of. It's been that way for 70 years at least, right? That we could find out day of. Really since the invention of widespread TV and everything else, we pretty much knew the results of an election the night of the election. And now here we are, 70, 60 years after TV, and our technology has regressed. So that's an immediate thing that may pique your interest a little bit. Is how is she being gaining in a fight? What is this like the medal count in the Olympics, or is it like the World Series? You get multiple days and you try to defeat your opponent. What's going on? Well, what is happening? Is the mail-in ballots have slowly come in, and almost all of them have gone in the favor of Pritya. So Raman now leads Pratt by 3,113 votes. Again, she was behind him on election day. So mail-in ballots with a June 2nd election day postmark will continue to be accepted by county election officials through Tuesday, through tomorrow. That's right. They're accepting ballots for 7 days after the election. Election officials estimate there are still 368,000 ballots left to process. That's a lot. 368,000 still haven't been counted somehow. So, like I said, Pratt took an early lead over Raman on election night, but Raman's numbers have improved steadily as mail-in ballots were counted. Leading a lot of observers to say, hey, if she keeps getting all these mail-in ballots, she's probably going to be able to beat him. Paul Mitchell, who's the vice president of the voter data firm Political Data Inc., drew comparisons with the 2022 mayoral election, in which Bass, the current mayor, trailed Rick Caruso on election night, but gradually overtook him to win. This exact thing has happened before. He said it's consistent logically with what we saw in 2022. Every update has benefited Raman to varying degrees. So like I said, it seems like she is getting almost all of the mail-in votes. And political strategist Michael Trujillo says that it's pretty much at this point that Pratt cannot claw his way back because he continues to lose ground. And again, there's 368,000. I'm be very curious at the end of this election, what is the percentage of those 368,000 that will go to her? Now they could also go to Bass, right? So I'd be curious to see how much of it actually goes to her. A lot of Democrats were believed to, according to them, have held on to their mail-in ballots until the 11th hour as they waited to choose between Democratic gubernatorial candidates. So that is where, again, a lot of these questions on coming in. And of course, this will, they'll continue to count these ballots next Tuesday. You'll probably have election contest after that. And if Raman were to make the runoff, she would probably pose a serious threat to Bass. So despite entering the race at the filing deadline, she had a strong presence on social media, and now she's, like I said, gaining these votes through the mail-in process. And in a head-to-head matchup, Raman would beat Bass 32% to 28%, according to a poll of registered voters conducted last month by UC Berkeley Institute of Government Studies. So we'll see exactly how it plays out. But the whole mail-in thing is extremely interesting, because we saw flavors of this in the 2020 presidential election, where again these mail-in ballots are affecting the elections, and again, especially as they start going to one candidate. Now, there's been since then, Donald Trump has maintained that there has been cheating in this election, calling it a rigged election. And a lot of the news services, which I find very interesting, have been saying that these are unsubstantiated claims. And Donald Trump continues to make unsubstantiated claims about rigged elections. So first off, again, anytime you see adjectives in a news story, it's no longer a hard news story. It is an opinion piece, because that is unsubstantiated can mean a lot of things. Or what is substantiated? The fact that you don't have evidence of something, doesn't necessarily make it untrue either, right? We have no evidence that Jimmy Hoffa was murdered, but I think everybody knows that Jimmy Hoffa was in fact murdered, right? It's like that kind of thing. Sometimes the absence of evidence is also evidence of something. And it does, and for people to say it doesn't at least cause you a little bit of concern when all of a sudden election night doesn't matter anymore. Because if it doesn't, and all these things are mail-in ballots, then we've completely lost the idea of an election day. That doesn't mean anything. And so if people can just mail in ballots, and again, it's very easy. It is, you cannot say that it's not easy to falsify that, right? Or especially if you're counting ballots for 7 days, as the election goes on, you can determine, hey, I need 20,000 more votes. So what am I going to do? I can print up 20,000 more. I already have postmarked. It's not like it's that hard to get a pre-postmarked envelope. It's not like that's an impossible thing to do, especially in the idea of in the grand scheme of cheating elections. That's a pretty easy thing to start getting these things. And when you have corrupt officials as well, it's not that hard. So again, they always say there's been no evidence of voting fraud. Sure, that is not an unfalse statement. But it is no more true than that there is cheating. Both can easily be either one could be true, right? So they focus on the other. But again, what do the people see, right? What is it, as we like to say in the legal world? What does the preponderance of the evidence say, right? There's a great example that I like using. We used it in criminal trials in the military when a judge was instructing a jury on evidentiary standards and what evidence means. And he said, the judge would say, if you were inside the house the whole day, with no windows, right? And then let's just say it was a completely isolated from the outside world. And then you walked out of this building that has no windows or anything, and you saw that the ground all around you was wet. Not wet in one spot, wet all around you. Then you can deduce, and as a jury member, you could deduce that it in fact rained, right? You didn't see it rain. You have no direct evidence of rain. You have just evidence that the ground is wet, right? I guess you could say that's direct evidence, but there is no evidence there that you did not see it rain. So therefore, you could see that. And I get to call here. Just hold on for me 1 second here on the call. I'll get to you in just a second. Okay. So they are you haven't seen it actually rain, but you can deduce that it in fact rained. The same thing happens with these types of elections. When someone all of a sudden is behind someone on election night, and then there is a thousands upon thousands, and the vast majority of them are going to the other candidate, you can deduce that, hey, something's a little fishy about that. That is not something that is that that would not be a reasonable conclusion to make, right? And the vast majority of people see that, right? And that's the problem with these types of mail-in ballots. Whether they can prove it or not, it does create extreme concerns and extreme doubts on the integrity of the election, no matter what. Even if it was all up front, like, let's just say it was up front for argument's sake, the the surrounding circumstances don't look great, right? And that's going to cause concern. And when people lose faith in their elections, then we lose our faith in our whole Republican democracy. So we have a caller here. So we have a couple minutes here. So I'm gonna pull him in. You're on the full story.
So it's called a red wave followed by a blue shift.
Hmm.
And so basically, this past election, we had, I don't know, I think it was 3 or 4 different Republicans that were leading election day in California.
Hmm.
And then they just kept counting and counting and counting. And you could see the numbers just slowly. Like they all were Democrats that got mailed in. I don't know why. No Republicans mailing anything, but it just kept going, kept going. And as soon as the Democrats overcame the Republicans' threshold, they called the election.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
it's just
it
amazing
happened.
how that works, right?
Yeah, like there was no let's check a little bit more to see if there's any more ballots out there. Nope. As soon as they got the number they needed, called it.
Well,
And
that's also the funny thing is, again, they say, hey, there's no evidence of election fraud. Well, if you never go look for it, I guess you'll never find it, will you?
oh, you never will. And they're not gonna find it
Right.
because they don't want to find it, because if they found it, they would lose control.
Exactly. Um,
And real quick, you had said
mhm.
something about how Iran had broken the peace deal or whatever. Who struck first?
We're going to talk more about Iran. We're not going to have a whole lot of minutes to talk about Iran, but again,
Well,
the United States did strike first. But
Israel attacked first, and then Iran responded. So just everybody knows that the whole thing. It wasn't like everybody was sitting there all Humpty Dumpty, and then all of a sudden Iran just shot off a whole bunch of
well,
missiles. No, Israel struck
I
first.
guess you could say they kind of struck first by building nuclear capability. But I'm going to let you go there because we have to take a break here. But I appreciate your call on the election.
Sounds good, bud.
Mhm.
Hey, like your show.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to take our first break right here. When we get back, I have a few more things I want to cover on this election. If you want to call into the break, number 601-879-0002. Keep it tuned here to the full story on WYB 1039. All right, legend, welcome back here to the Full Story in WYB 1039 as we continue on talking about the California election and the broader implications of the Democrats' view for how elections should be run in the United States. And we were just talking about before we took a break, that first break, we were discussing about the fact that sure, is there any direct evidence of voter fraud? No. But again, if you don't look for it, and number two, when all the surrounding circumstances are kind of pointing to it, people can make reasonable conclusions. Whether you prove it or not is also not relevant because it's how people perceive their elections. Like I said, people have to perceive that elections are fair and honest. Otherwise, the whole system falls. Whether it's true or not true or anything like that, you have to have a system that at least ensures people that we can have secure elections. So that is where, this, and then when the media tries to push, again, another narrative that, oh, this is unsubstantiated, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, look at the evidence, look at everything surrounding it. You tell me. And so that was a big contention when Donald Trump was having an interview with NBC's Meet the Press. And he was talking to the show's percentage, Kristen Welker. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. So you can hear that exchange and again where the media is coming from on that.
Election was rigged. It was a dirty election,
Mr.
and it's
President,
happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence.
It's happening
that the
right now in California.
Rigged.
Right now, it's look at what's
Where's
happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days. And they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count the votes.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're
California.
cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence?
That's how they count the votes in California, what you just said. Sorry, I'll continue on. Mitch is, do you have evidence?
All I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
really.
Let's
well,
continue.
You play right into their hands.
I'm not crooked. Well, you're backing up a crooked narrative. I'm just saying.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Like he cares that she traveled to Wisconsin. I also thought that was funny. Why should he care? He's also in Wisconsin. It's like, you should care that I traveled all this way. But it's right there. It's like they refuse to acknowledge. He said, can you at least acknowledge that calling an election 5 days after the election day is just a little troublesome? And it's just, oh, they acknowledge that they're slow. But that's the way they do things in California. So that is just, again, that's just the way the way that these they look at this. It's just absolutely absolutely ridiculous that they can't at least acknowledge that there is this issue of that doesn't look right. And if you as a media person, right? And again, we're not in a court of law in the media, right? This is we report facts. We report all the things that are going around. And what are the facts, right? The facts are that you have a guy who is ahead on election night, and then over the course of 7 days, all of these mail-in ballots are going to one person, or essentially going to one person. What does that tell you? That they are finding votes, or what? A good journalist would dig into that. So when she says, "Oh, there's no evidence," well, you know what? As Meet the Press, or what are you doing to do any kind of investigative journalism to find out? And the odds are, they're not going to, right? Because they have that narrative. And again, you see here, and what I want to focus on is that last part there that she said, "Mr. President, this is how they do elections in California." That's an important statement because that is the Democrats' vision for how elections should run. And that's extremely concerning considering that we could not pass the SAVE Act. So we're going to take a break right here, and we're going to talk about that point when we get back. If you want to call in during the break, number 601-879-0002, but keep it tuned to the full story on WYAB 1039. All right, ladies and welcome back here to the Full Story on WYB 1039. As we continue our discussion about, really, it started as talking about the Los Angeles election, but really the broader scheme of how Democrats want to run elections. So, as I've mentioned, and as she said there at the interview, this is how they do elections in California. That's what she said to Donald Trump. And again, I think that's an important thing to think about, because that is, in fact, how they do elections, right? They have an election day, which means absolutely nothing, and then they essentially take in votes for 7 days after that. And then all of a sudden, a candidate they were wanting to win ends up winning, even if they were behind on election night. It's funny how it always works out that way, right? And it always goes in their favor, just magically. That's the way it does. And then, you got the, granted, you'll have experts say, and I say experts with finger quotes, that's because mostly Democrats, more Republicans vote during election day, but more Democrats vote through mail-in ballots, and that's why that happens. Okay. If that's really what you're going to go with, is that all of a sudden it's just magical that just only Democrats do mail-in voting. Who knew? No Republicans do mail-in voting. It's just Democrats. It just always seems to work out that way. And this is why things like the SAVE Act are going to be important, is to, when you have a state that does that, and then you go a couple states over, and all of a sudden you have voter ID, you have only in one-day elections, this varying amount of how states run elections can cause problems for federal elections, right? This is a state, granted, it wouldn't affect the mayoral race, right? Because that is a local election. If they want to cheat on local elections, nothing the federal government can do about it. Nothing the federal government should do about it. I'm in agreement with that. If that's the way they want to run their place, then that's the way they want to run it. And they have to accept the repercussions thereof. But when it affects presidential elections and things like that, or Senate elections that could affect the whole country, then there is, in fact, a federal interest. And that is where the Save America Act came from. However, it has been consistently having problems in the Senate after passing the House on party line votes last year. So, and again, when it came up to vote this past last Thursday, I believe, 4 Senate Republicans broke ranks to kill yet another effort. It was Senator Susan. It's all the regular players here. Senator Susan Collins, Susan Collins. I'm gonna get that out, from Maine. Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina joined all Democrats to defeat the move. And that's the second attempt by Republicans to attach the SAVE Act to the budget reconciliation package, and the second time they failed to get the legislation across the line months after launching a floor takeover to debate the bill. So again, just complete loss. Now, they could just make it into a new bill. The reason they tried to put it to budget reconciliation is they say, okay, you can pass this whole thing, and if you don't pass the whole thing, then the whole thing fails. But it also means that because it's an amendment to it, it requires 60 votes. So even though they lost 4, they would never get it. So to me, it was a way for the Republicans in the Senate to not take any responsibility whatsoever, instead of just making it its own act, instead of just trying to make it an amendment to the reconciliation process. So like I said, and unless they get rid of the filibuster for the reconciliation process, which is not a good idea, but they could just do it as its own self and get rid of the filibuster for that alone. But they won't do that move for whatever reason, because again, they don't want it. They essentially want to lose, is what it seems like. And now the Democrats can say, hey, look, we did a bipartisan effort to defeat Donald Trump's Save America Act. They can legitimately say that. And they, like I said, they're just handing it to them. And the Democrats, when they get in power, and if they get the president, the House, and the Senate, much like they did in 2008, they could easily pass a law saying voter ID is illegal. No state can use voter ID in federal elections. No state can ban the use of mail-in ballots for federal elections. You know what? They could very easily get something like that passed, because their ranks they don't really defect when it comes down to voting, right? They may defect in the media and on social media and all the other stuff. When it gets down to brass tacks, they vote for it. And they can easily do that. And these Republicans are the ones who have set that up without having any kind of protections. And this is what is going on in California is their goal for elections in the whole country. Because again, that way they could control results as they inevitably have. And again, that's just going to cause multiple people looking at election and not trusting it. And that would be, to me, the end of our whole system of government. Because as soon as we do that, then we're nothing but our democracy is nothing but a democracy in name only, right? The fact that people could vote for their candidates means nothing if they can just cheat it, right? And again, there are other countries, there are several third world countries and that do this type of thing. Oh, we have elections, but it doesn't really matter what your election is. A great example would be the Nazi Germany election to have a referendum on whether they should invade Poland, and magically it was 99% yes. There's 99% of people can't agree on anything, but they have this idea of an election. And they've been doing methods like this for a while. We've been seeing this types of methods. You see it here. You saw it even here in the state of Mississippi when they decided to change what our flag was, right? You never got to vote on whether to change the flag or not. You just got to vote on what the new design was. They made a decision for you and gave you the illusion that you were voting for something, right? I remember when I was going back even further. I remember when I was going to Ole Miss and they were getting rid of Colonel Reb and to get a new mascot. Our vote was, do you want to vote for a new mascot or do you want us to choose a new mascot? That was a choice they gave us. It's an illusion of choice. And that illusion of choice can work for weaker-minded people, but the American people, there's a lot of weak-minded ones. But the American people are a little more robust than I think the Democrats. That's one place where the Democrats always fail, is they always underestimate the American people. They continue to think that they can operate it like a lot of these other countries that can fool people, but Americans are a little bit harder, and that's how they failed in the last election. But if the Republicans, if you vote for a Republican to stop that, and the Republicans are letting it happen, then there's nothing we can do. They are continually going against what you're actually voting people in there for. So it's either you remove the current Republican Party completely out of the House, or the Democrats will be taking over. That's just the way it's going to work, because right now they are showing ultimate failure in their ability to govern. They can't even get their own agendas passed, much less agendas that Donald Trump, all these other agendas Donald Trump wants. They can't do it. They can't get it passed. And that's having wide-ranging effects, including in Iran. As over the weekend, the Iranian military was bombing Israel. And they both started trading strikes over the weekend. And it's just funny how this comes after several senators said they think about a war powers resolution to limit Donald Trump. And that all of a sudden empowers Iran to up their attacks. And now, again, attacking Israel once again. And so even up to today, Israel and Iran traded fires since the so-called ceasefire 2 months ago. I think we can stop calling it a ceasefire. I don't know why we still call it that. If people are throwing missiles, it's no longer a ceasefire. It's just that if they're blocking everything, it's not a ceasefire. It's a ceasefire in name only. It's a sino. The Iranian military now said hours later that it was halting offensive operations as the renewed hostilities threatened to drag the Middle East back into full-scale war. The U.S. told Iran there'd be no more attacks by Israel if Iran halted its missile strikes, and that Israel has agreed to halt attacks for now, according to a regional official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. The White House and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, however, have not made any statements against this regarding whether that's true or not. So this is, like I said, this is just another example of what's going on in Iran is going to be a crap show for Donald Trump and the Republican Party if they can't get their stuff in order. Because again, Iran is going to be able to sit this out. It's a war of attrition at this point. It's who can hold out longer. Can Iran hold out longer when, with all the blockade and their economy collapsing and people starving in the streets? Possibly, we don't know. We can't get video in there, so we don't actually know what's going down on the streets. I've seen some videos when the internet was turned on for a little bit of just how bad it is getting in Iran. But again, we can't know for certain. So there's that. Can they hold out? Or two, can they hold out long enough for the Republicans to lose? Because Donald Trump can't hold this politically. He doesn't have the authority from Congress. He doesn't have the authority. He doesn't have the backing of his own party at this point. So can they wait out Donald Trump? That's really all they have to do, is just wait out Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's hands are tied behind his back without the help of Congress, and that's why they can continue to do this. So in the wake of the United States and the new attacks, U.S. President Donald Trump wrote online, Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting. Shortly after, the Iranian military's joint command issued a statement saying they would stop if Israel would stop. It said further that aggression and hostile acts by Israel and its supporters, including in southern Lebanon, would be met with much more severe and crushing measures than before. Meanwhile, diplomats are racing to save this ceasefire that said it can't be a ceasefire, as Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, again, awesome name, expressed concerns Monday over the surge in violence. In a post on X, he urged all parties to exercise restraint and give peace a little more chance. But again, Iran has no to them, right? What's unless Donald Trump gives them everything they want, and their most recent thing is they want billions of dollars released from frozen assets, which if Donald Trump did that, it would put Iran in a pretty good spot and make this whole thing seem like it was a waste of time and resources. So they have really no reason. They can just, if I'm them, right? If you put yourself in Iran's seat, right? If you're one of their, if you're their negotiators, like, hey, you don't have support of your own government. We're just going to keep this up until they're out. And then once the Republicans lose Congress, I mean, shoot, there's really nothing going to happen. And they're going to just impeach Donald Trump until kingdom come if they win the House again. It's just going to be impeachment after impeachment after impeachment after impeachment trial. And so there's not going to be anything that's going to be done. And they could easily come out of this pretty well if they can wait it out, unless their people starve to death first. That's the war of attrition part. All right, we have take our final break right here. When we get back, we'll do This Day in History. Keep it tuned to the full story on WYAB 103.9. You on the full story?
Hey, man, I'm not trying to take up your whole show, so I'm calling a break.
You're good.
Republicans got to do more than just vote. You got to get active. You got to call into these shows. You've got to get educated. Like, for instance, you were saying that Iran's economy is failing. Let me ask you this. Do you know per capita who has more female doctors? And I don't mean like a physician. I just mean like doctorates. Iran or the U.S.?
I mean, I'm guessing where you're going, Iran.
Yeah, you're guessing right. The picture of Iran, if you called in, if you said, somebody call me and tell me what Iran looks like, it's going to be women in burqas, it's going to be like huts, it's going to be like dirt floors. But they have changed so much in the last 15 years. And I'm not pro-Iran. I'm pro-facts. And the fact of the matter is, they have per capita more graduates than we do. It's just we have been conditioned to view them in a way that's not accurate. And
well, I think that bodes the point that why they're so dangerous. Again, if they're just this third world country, then of course they can't build a nuclear weapon, right? They have to have some kind of intelligence to be able to pull something like that off.
100%. But what I'm saying is, three things can be true at the same time. I can be worried about China trying to take us over. I can be worried about Israel trying to take us over with the NDAA 224 and the Senate bill. And I can be worried about Iran. I can multitask.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a pro-Israel, anti-Iran, pro-Iran, anti-Israel thing. They both can suck at the same time.
Well, my thing is, my thing is, regardless, is to me is just how bad it's going to look on Donald Trump if nothing happens, and how it's going to look on the Republican Party, which is going to really cause extreme Democrat gains in the House and the Senate, and possibly an election in 2 years. I mean, if he fumbles this, there's no way J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio can win a presidential election in 2 years.
It's already fumbled, man. You don't understand. Like, there's been all those tankers over there are sitting there idle, and even if they open the Strait up today, it's still going to take months for them all to do their full circulation. It's going to be a bloodbath in November because I'm telling you, higher diesel prices are coming, and if diesel goes up, so does fuel, so does everything else.
Well, I'm not in disagreement with you there. That's what I'm saying. They have to figure out something. Because if they can't get together on that, then it's going to be the American people are already tired of it. The things are already expensive, 100%. And again, if they're bumbling everything up there in DC. If they show they can't govern, I mean, that's what the Democrats are going to say. Look, the Republicans can't govern, and they wouldn't be wrong in that assessment.
They're screwed it up so bad it's almost on purpose.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I mentioned the other day. It's like they want to lose.
Yeah. 100%, man, but you got to get back on there. Appreciate it.
Yep, you got to take it. Thanks. All right, Legend, welcome back here to the Full Story on WYAB 103.9. And one thing I always forget to mention, we do stream live on YouTube and Rumble. And one of the good things about that is, sometimes during the breaks, we get a lot of callers during the breaks. And I appreciate the people who do call during the breaks. And you can always listen to those discussions on those platforms that we have there. That we can't take on the air, and sometimes we can have much more broader discussions on there because of FCC regulations here that we're not allowed to do. So you can always check those out. And again, if you miss any part of the show, you can go to regulatorsproductions.com and see that. But now we get to this day in history, and it's a pretty big day to this day in history, because on this day in 1789, a quiet but pivotal moment unfolded in the United States. The Constitution had just been ratified and the new federal government was beginning its work, but many Americans still remained uneasy. They feared that the powerful government they had just created may someday threaten the very liberties they had just fought a revolution to secure. So into that debate then stepped James Madison. Often called the father of the Constitution, Madison rose before the House of Representatives on June 8th and proposed a series of amendments designed to protect individual freedoms and limit the power of government. His goal was simple but profound: to ensure that Americans' rights would be clearly stated and permanently protected. At the time, some lawmakers argued that such protections were unnecessary. Others worried that listing certain rights might imply that unlisted rights did not exist. Madison acknowledges those concerns, but believed that the new nation needed to demonstrate its commitment to liberty and win the trust of its feared federal overreach. And that's when he created the Bill of Rights, was first introduced today. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. We'll see you again on Saturday But until then, my name is Matthew Bishop, and you have heard the full story.